Hello everyone, I'm John Higgins, curator of the YouTube channel John Higgins Film Review. Please subscribe and like my videos so I can continue to grow and evolve the channel with more content. I'm delighted to welcome one and all to this interview special with writer-director Warda Mohamed, whose latest short, Muna, was featured in this year's British Short Film Awards, and it's the tale of a teenage British Somalian girl who has to deal with family conflict and tragedy. Warda, a warm welcome to you.
Hello, thank you so much.
Okay, so let's talk a little about the origin and start-off point for the show. Where did all that come from, and what was your objective?
Growing up, I had a real a curiosity about grief as an emotion, as it was something that I hadn't really gone through growing up, and it's something I seen my parents go through many times growing up. Sorry, my lighting is a bit bad, but it's okay. Growing up, and I was just so fascinated by it. So I really wanted to tell a story about this kind of broken down, just trying to figure out the understanding of what it is like to go through grief when it's a family member that you've never met before, and how that kind of works, and a kind of an exploration through that. And I really wanted to tell it through the eyes of a 16-year-old girl who's, her end all and be all is her friendship group, and where she stands in that, and who she is. And at that moment in time when we meet Muna, she's kind of on the periphery of her friendship group, and this school trip is the chance for her to kind of grab hold of her place in that group. And over the weekend she kind of has to grapple with the fact that she her responsibility in that family, and also with the thing of how do I mourn this person, and should I mourn in this way, or should I just ignore it like my brother is, or should I just face it head on? But how do I face it head on if I've never met him before, and how am I supposed to know who this is? So yeah, it's just kind of kind of not really answer these questions, but kind of explore them.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the intricacies of what you tried to create. I mean, it's a very enlightening and enriching reflection of what Somali life is. I mean, you capture it with, with the party and the food and everything else. I mean, how much of a challenge was that to actually get the specifics right for this short? Was it difficult? Did you find that some things came much easier to you?
It wasn't difficult at all, actually. I had experience working on a film called Rocks, and I kind of had a hand in consulting and helping out on every aspect of the film, especially on the Somali portion of the film. So I kind of had contacts, and I knew people who could help me out. So when we ended up hiring the amazing costume designer in Natalie Rose, in Natalie Raw, and Elena Isolini, they really understood the story as a whole, and we were really collaborative, and oh, we should go here and we should do this. And I was able to join Eleanor. We went to a props house together, and she was like, you tell me what you think would be in this house, so let's build it together, and then once you've given me a base, I can grow from that on my own. So yeah, it was kind of us just joining this journey together, and it was incredibly collaborative. But yeah, I think with Somali stories, you kind of, as a director who is Somali, I kind of do have to lend a hand in each department to make sure it's told as authentically as possible. But working with these kind of collaborators was a real treat for me, because they really wanted to collaborate with me too, and it was just a really beautiful experience.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your terrific cast. I mean, let's starting with the lady who plays Muna, and of course the ensemble of characters, because you had quite a few, people in place. So tell us more about your castings.
So yeah, as you know, as I said before, I worked on Rock, so that's how I met Kosa Ali, our outstanding lead in this, and she joined on really early on before we got funding, because she was really inspired by the story and really related to it. So she became a really close creative collaborator in this, as well as the years went on, as we tried to get funding for this. And then Elmi, who was he has an agent, so we went through that route for the brother, but we did do street casting for it originally. And then everyone else, so the mother, the father, all the guests, are pretty much all street casted. So some of the men in the film that you see come in when they come to the wake were all, most of that, some of them were considered for the role of the brother, Abdi, which they weren't successful with, but we really liked them, and I just wanted to get them involved. So yeah, we were like, do you want to come in for a day and join us on that? So that's how we found them. And it was the same for the women of the wake. All the women, most of them auditioned for the mother role, which they weren't successful in, and we were like, just come on board to be part of that. And it was just really such a lovely day. And I also pulled in some favors with my cousins and my brother to be involved. And they were really excited to do so and had a great day as well.
Yeah, so you've already mentioned about your collaboration, about already about part of your team. I just wanted to tell you, could you talk us through from some of the other people you collaborated with and in terms of bringing this short together?
So my two close collaborators in this were Angie and Simon, who are our producers on this. And, they joined on really early on as well. And it's just been such a joy to work with them because Muna was essentially my first script I'd ever written. So there was a lot of development work that needed to be done, and the kind of space they both gave me to kind of grow into that. And they're not just my producers, they're like such creative collaborators in this. And I take everything they say very seriously, and I always consider everything. So yeah, it was a real like labor of love from the three of us, of just trying to tell the story in the best way possible. So there was a million rewrites on this and trying to get the story exactly right as possible, because as you know, Muna is very dialogue and narrative heavy, and with shorts is you're very limited on time in terms of telling a story from beginning to end without it feeling boring or feeling too dragged out, or the story is unfinished. So it was a real a tricky balance to be had. So we had many conversations on that. So yeah, it was yeah, just a joy to work with them, and yeah, kind of be on this journey together. And yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a bit. Where did you shoot and for how long?
So it was a 4-day shoot, and we shot in North London, in a small area. The place has gone out of my head just now, but yeah, it was a really lovely shoot. We shot last November, and it was during a tube strike, which was we were praying that it was going to be cancelled, but one day was cancelled, but the other day wasn't. So it was just really tricky for us to find a way around that. But our incredible exec producer, Claire Wilson, who's just a phenomenal writer in her own right, she kind of just said, like, I want to contribute, and she ended up paying for travel for people that took Ubers to set. So it was just everyone just coming together and figuring out solutions on how to make this shoot as seamless as possible, and it was a real success because of that.
I mean, it is pleasing. I mean, I'm well aware of what it's like, the complexities of tube strikes, how it impacts on everything, not just yourself, but well done for doing that. So tell us a bit about who and what are your key cinematic influences?
So for this short in particular, I was really inspired by Iranian cinema, particularly new wave cinema. So Abbas Kiarostami and Asghar Farhadi, and the two films that I was really inspired by was A Separation and the film 10 by Abbas Kiarostami. And those two films kind of inspired me on like that balance between that kind of realism and that kind of fictional, and that kind of blurred lines of like what is real and what is not. And I wanted this family to be as real as possible, but kind of tell this complex story. And I was really inspired by the mesh of actors that especially Abbas uses, where he kind of mixes, first-time actors with established actors, and seeing how that plays off each other, and that kind of storytelling within the camera, and in terms of framing. I really wanted these like not extreme, but like these close-ups on Muna, and kind of see every emotion she's going through, because it is a very emotional story. And I kind of wanted the camera to kind of be in these kind of like subjective views. If you so, yeah, in this kind of like, where would the camera be if this was kind of like a shot, like a documentary? If the camera wasn't going to move, where would you put it? And we used a lot of handheld. So yeah, it was a lot of kind of just figuring out, kind of getting alchemized with our location, and kind of we kind of did, me and my the DP Olan Koladi, we did a shot list. It was a very simple shot list because I wanted simplicity in this story, because it's such a complex story. I didn't want the camera work to be too crazy. But we would follow that, but sometimes we'd be like, is there a way where we can be a bit more honest with this? So we kind of had a lot of conversations like that. But most of the time it was just us like getting used to the kind of inspirations that I had already pointed out and references, and kind of leading the way from there.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the industry itself. I mean, diversity and gender at the moment is still a big topic in the industry. And I'm just curious to know, from your own perspective as an evolving filmmaker, I mean, where do you feel progress has been made, and where do you feel there is still work to be done, particularly for people like yourself?
Um, I will say it's interesting because I feel as if there has been progress in terms of the shorts that are being produced at the moment and being financed. But yeah, it is tricky because we're still, a very small percent of us getting the chance to get our films financed in the first place. And, I think a great example was how long it took us to get funding for this short in particular. It took 4 years to get funded for this short. As we all know, shorts don't cost that a lot of money. So it was a really long time of us trying to persuade these financiers that we're good enough. And, people found it a bit hard to understand this story. So yeah, I think it's a thing of having people of diversity in these positions, of like these kind of financiers and development execs and commissioners, putting them in these positions where they are the person of like, they're kind of the person of taste essentially. And it's not just about the filmmakers, it's having those people who understand those stories being able to commission these kind of stories. So yeah, I think that's where the progress is needed, and like diversifying those kind of production rooms, because once that happens, I think it will follow through on the stories that are being made.
Okay, so you've mentioned that you were working on Rocks earlier as a consultant, but I understand you also worked with Roger Michelle on the film The Duke, and also Edgar Wright on Last Night in Soho. I mean, I mean, Roger Michelle, of course, is no longer with us, but he was a renowned director with things like Notting Hill, and he's worked with Daniel Craig on The Mother and Enduring Love, and then of course Edgar Wright, who is doing the business at the moment. I'm just curious,
Mm.
did you learn anything from working with these people that has sort of helped shape your own creative journey as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I really, with Roger Michelle in particular, I was assisting him and the producer Nikki Bentham. So I kind of did a dual role in that, just to experience. I essentially was, yeah, I was really lucky enough to end up assisting them both. But specifically with Roger, I had never worked with someone that knew exactly what they wanted. And I think with like having experience with like Sarah Gavron and Edgar Wright and Roger Michelle, I think I've learned something from each of them. But in particular with Roger, I think his kind of understanding of what he wanted, um, and the kind of love he would get from his crew was just so special to witness. And he made that such a beautiful set to work on, and everyone kind of, well, like I've been working with him for years. Anytime I get a call to work on a Roger film, I drop everything and I go and work with him. And I've never heard anyone say that about anyone. And I just was like, I really want to replicate that for my sets. And I want to make it as healthy as possible. And, I don't want to do, he would never do long hours, and he would finish at 6 o'clock, or 6 o'clock to 6:30. And sometimes we'd even wrap earlier than that. And he'd be like, yep, I've got everything. And it wasn't about him rushing through everything. He was just so precise on the shots he wanted, and he didn't take many takes. And it was just that kind of confidence that exuded from him. But he wasn't confident in the way that it was just so casual. Like it just oozed off him. And it was just such an honor to witness that. So yeah, that's something I always take in what I do, because as you know, sets, it's really long hours, and you just you lead by, as a director, you lead by example, because what the first AD follows is your emotion and how you're feeling. And if you kind of exude this kind of stress and this, like, anxiety, it kind of spreads throughout the whole set. And it was just a reminder of how precious that is and how precious everyone else's time is, and really respecting that.
Hmm. Well, let's talk a bit more about you now. And of course, I understand you're part of the BFI Network New Talent Initiative, which I understand is a very great thing for people emerging. I mean, I'm just curious to know, what is your experience with that, and how has that sort of helped you develop as in that context?
Yeah, it was yeah, so I was part of the LFF DFI BFI Network cohort, which was in October of this year, and it was just such a phenomenal experience. Like, I met the coolest people and we learned so much, and we got to watch a lot of debuts, British debuts, either made by the BFI or Film 4 or BFI and BBC Film. And it was just getting to be immersed with these kind of people who they really wanted to have us, because as we are all on our way to hopefully making our feature very soon, they really wanted us to be in these kind of spaces where people have gone from shorts to features, and getting to see their work firsthand. And then they would organize Q&As with those filmmakers to talk to them after, and to really hear about that process and how it went for them. So it was really special to some of these filmmakers. Like, for example, we got to see Luna Carmoon's Horde and Molly Manning Walker's How to Have Sex, and it was just phenomenal just to watch these films early on. And I'm a big fan of them both, and to see their short and their growth into their feature films was just such a pleasure to watch. And then getting to really like break down these features and really hear about like the behind the scenes was just such important knowledge to take on to my next work. So yeah, it was just a really inspiring few days just being part of that community, and I really found some really great friends through that, so I'm grateful.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up. I've got three final questions for you. I mean, the first one is, obviously you were just mentioning that you're on your way to looking at your first feature. I mean, is Muna going to be do you think that this film could be expanded, short film could be expanded into a feature, or do you feel that this is what you've told? Have you kind of said everything you needed to say in this short film with this context?
Yeah, with Muna, for me, some people have other ideas, but for me, I really think it's a contained story, because I really wanted to kind of end the film with that lingering feeling of you're not supposed to feel satisfied at the end of it, because Muna's not satisfied at the end of it, and it's kind of heartbreaking at the end. And I kind of wanted to leave it that way, because that's life in general. You don't always get what you want, and you kind of have to accept the situation you're in. So I really don't want to expand on that, but I do love the story. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna, my goal is to move on and end up developing a feature now, that's kind of in a similar world, but kind of a departure from it.
Okay. And my two final questions. First of all, how has the festival circuit helped your film? Because obviously you were at the film was at the British Short Film Awards the other day, which I attended. So I saw really the wealth of talent that were there. Everybody's so enthusiastic. It was at the Marylebone Theatre, so I was quite honoured to be there and chat to people, and it was great to sort of connect with people like this, make connections with Simon and everybody else. So what's the festival experience been like for you?
It's been really great. We started at Bolton, and we've been doing a few festivals. We've done a few now, and it's been really lovely. And I've gotten to sit and watch the film with an audience, and it's just been so cool to hear people's reaction at the end and people talking about it after. And I've done a few Q&As, and it's been really nice just to hear people's other point of view, and feeling people talking about how they relate to the story, and like telling me their stories about their experience and how they see themselves in Muna. So yeah, it's been a really special time so far.
Okay, and my final question is, what are you most proud of about this short film?
I'm most proud of first that we got to make it, and that we got to make it with such incredible, talented, phenomenal, outstanding cast and crew. And I'm so grateful to the people that I did it with, and the patience they showed, and the graciousness that they showed, and the kindness. So yeah, I'm just thankful that we all got to make a short on our own terms and tell the story we wanted to tell.
Okay, well, Warda, listen, thank you so much. It's been an honor chatting with you today, and thank you for your time and insights. It's as I say, I was well impressed with it. The intimacy and the intensity of the drama and the conflict is well worth it. So just wrapping up, everyone else, Muna is currently doing great in the festival circuit, so please do check it out if it's in the listings of your local festival. Most importantly, support indie films and the filmmakers like Warda, because these are the lifeblood and future of it, and Warda certainly has got a really bright future ahead of her, and I wish her well. And for more interviews like this, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel John Higgins Film Review. As a reminder, please do subscribe and like. And for more articles, interviews, and reviews that I've done, you can also go to the website www.filmandtvnow.com, where I also interview other filmmakers as well. So on that note, thank you, Warda, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you.